that was the Lando Norris, Robert, that we saw last year.
He had to work hard for it. I thought it was a bit cocky by saying on the radio, I can make a gap of 10 seconds. I was like, okay, put your money where your mouth is.
What on earth is Carlos Sainz Jr. doing, Robert?
You need to look at the blue flags. Afterwards in the media, he just said, yeah, that's racing. I thought that was quite arrogant and ignorant from him to say.
Max Verstappen's dive bomb, absolute beauty, Mr. Doornbos.
To get that one chance and to take it, that makes a difference between a very good Grand Prix driver and a fantastic Grand Prix driver.
He had his own truck, even way back then.
Back in Barcelona, his own techno gym trucks would walk towards the techno gym truck and started working his torso and his neck muscles, and while he just did 100 laps in a Formula 1 car.
What's the moment for you that stands out?
Lewis Hamilton doing so well in the Ferrari. I think that's my top pick for the first part of the season. The future of Max Verstappen, the options are off the table. I don't see Mercedes pushing for Max like they pushed in the past.
11 races down, 12 to go. The Hungarian Grand Prix was closed, the first chapter of Formula One's new era. We finally have a McLaren victory. Kimi Antonelli has strengthened his grip on the championship. Max Verstappen, well, he keeps delivering beyond expectation. And Ferrari, well, Ferrari once again pose more questions than answers. You are watching or listening to the Pit Talk podcast powered by Thara. Chris McHardy, and it's the former Red Bull, former Minardi, former IndyCar Rookie of the Year. I've got to get all of that in. It's Robert Doornbos alongside me once more. Roberto, how are we, fella?
Hello, Chris. All good. Enjoyed the Hungarian Grand Prix. You forgot former Hungarian Grand Prix non-finisher Robert Doornbos. But when in my days it was Minardi that lost its power steering on the way to turn 4, or a Red Bull that was brake tested by Fernando Alonso into turn 1. So lots of sweet memories to Hungary.
Yeah, a dodgy tradesman always blames his tools, Robert. That's what I was taught as a youngster, pal. Hey, listen, great to see you. You are still with the family over in Ibiza.
Yeah.
Before we get in to all things Hungarian Grand Prix, you've been hobnobbing with David Beckham.
Wow.
Tell us more.
It was a bit one-sided traffic, to be honest. I noticed his yacht. He has a new yacht called Seven. I mean, the man is on fire lately, you know, with Inter Miami doing so well and all his other business ventures. So I noticed the Beckhams with their boat close to ours. So I drove over there with my little son in his little boat, his tiny boat, and I was fanning the Beckhams. I saw them, David and Victoria. They didn't see me, but it's quite cool. Lots of legends here. Who else was here? Michael Jordan was here. The whole Spanish football team was here after winning the World Cup. Obviously the Beckhams. Kanye West was here yesterday in a restaurant. So Ibiza is very popular at the moment with all the stars from different leagues.
Hey, listen, forget Becks, forget Michael Jordan. Robert Doornbos is there. That's the biggest talking point.
The only difference is that they come home at 6 o'clock in the morning and I put my alarm clock to do the podcast with you, thanks to the time difference with Dubai. So that's the only difference, but we're here.
Professional to the end, Robert. I'd expect nothing else. Listen, pal, give me your thoughts. Myself and the production team here have been discussing. I actually really enjoyed the Hungarian Grand Prix. A lot of the boys saying, it was a bit meh. I loved it. You enjoy it?
Loved it, especially after Spa, which I really had a heavy feeling after Spa. I got really disappointed. I mean, even our podcast, we missed a bit of the energy after Grand Prix. Normally you have full of energy, lots of talking points. Spa was just a feeling of, due to the new regulations, we lost a fantastic circuit with some incredible cornerings, and it was just different, you know, with all the super clipping of the engine, lifting and coasting, etc. So Hungary, that was all done 7 days later because it's a completely different circuit, and I really felt that everybody was pushing the tires and the cars and itself to the limit due to the heat. So it was a really, really good Grand Prix weekend, if you ask me.
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely adored it as well. I mean, so much talking points. Thankfully, it's good for a podcast that we have so many talking points. I mean, ultimately, the headline grabber, Lando Norris, McLaren back, those upgrades, well, they had the desired effect. That was the Lando Norris, Robert, that we saw last year. He had pace, he was aggressive. Once again, tried to bully Oscar Piastri. He was on the radio saying, guys, get a wriggle on, I'm too quick for this fella. And what a performance across the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It started already in qualifying, to get the pole position. They brought in the new floor, which is the biggest upgrade for McLaren until now. And they made work of it. Oscar was fast, but Lando was faster, and he got the pole position. And it's his first back-to-back wins on a circuit where he won last year and now also this year. So Hungary is good for Lando. He had to work hard for it. I thought it was a bit cocky by saying on the radio, I can make a gap of 10 seconds. I was like, okay, put your money where your mouth is. But then when Oscar pitted, he was 6 to 8 tenths per lap faster. Incredible.
It was incredible. A 12th victory of his F1 career for Lando Norris. His 162nd start in a McLaren as well. That takes him ahead of the late great Ayrton Senna. I mean, he is Lando. There is no doubt. We know Oscar's a great driver, but Lando is the top dog.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he has the number one on his car. We all remember Abu Dhabi, the final Grand Prix last year, where Lando won the championship by only 2 points over Max Verstappen. And since then, we haven't seen a lot from the world champion. He had a few podium finishes. I think in Miami was his first one, and then he sort of was okay with the situation that the car is just not fast. But McLaren pushed, and they brought the right upgrades to Hungary at the right timing as well. It's very important how you time your upgrades. We'll get to that later, because in my opinion, Mercedes spent a bit too much in the winter by making their car so fast, and now they're sort of looking to bring upgrades as other teams are bringing these upgrades. So, but definitely it was Lando's weekend, and good way to start the summer break. He will be in Ibiza soon as well, I think.
Yeah, I guess the big question, Robert, in all honesty though, is these upgrades from McLaren. Is it a case of just the car suiting the track in Hungary, or can we all get a little bit excited now that McLaren might just have a big say on the destination of the Drivers' Championship, the Constructors' Championship, come the second half of this season ultimately?
Yeah, well, it's all about timing. And I think Hungary is a good way to time any upgrade. For example, Aston Martin also brought 16 in total. Because then during the summer break you can really analyze it if it worked well. If you can, and Hungary and Zandvoort, the next circuit on the calendar, they're very similar in driving style and tire wear. So it's a good place to bring an upgrade. But I'm sure McLaren will have to bring more to be consistent on the front end of the pack.
Yeah, of course, Lando qualifying first. He was magnificent in qualifying. He then had a bit of an iffy start. He saw Oscar Piastri, I think he run wide in, I think it was turn 2, wasn't it? And then Oscar with the undercut. We'll get to Oscar, but the stat that you shared with me this morning, just incredible. Really does show you where we're at. I know there's a lot of negativity around the regulations, but on the flip side, it has thrown up a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of jeopardy. The stat that you shared with me, Robert, we've now had 11 different podiums across this season. Of course we have. There's been 11 races, for goodness sake. 11 different variations on that podium as well. Of course, yesterday, Lando Norris, then it was Max Verstappen, and then it was Kimi Antonelli. That's incredible.
It is incredible, considering that when I was in Bahrain at the start of the season for winter testing, everybody predicted 1-2s for Mercedes, at least for the first half of the season. They would wrap up the championship. And that's the charm of Formula One, that you're only as good as your last race, and you have to keep developing and updating. But to have 11 different setups on the podium is quite impressive. So let's see what the second half will bring. But there are some talking points, like Max is outperforming his Red Bull by far, because nobody predicted 2 podiums in the last 2 races for Red Bull, considering the pace of the car. Ferrari is doing well, but not executing perfectly, so they are losing out on some potential wins. And Mercedes hasn't been reliable so far. They've been fast, but not that reliable.
Yeah, come on though, before we move on from McLaren, I've got to get to the incident that did have ultimately a big say on yesterday's outcome, the little tete-a-tete between Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz Jr. We've seen the memes, Oscar far from happy. I mean, ultimately, as a racer yourself, what on earth is Carlos Sainz Jr. doing, Robert? He sees 5 blue flags, blue lights.
5, 9. It starts already the lap before. So there was a malfunction with the blue flags. Like you have the marshals with the blue flags and you have the LED lights. The LED lights you cannot miss. And the marshal, maybe you miss it one or twice, but not 9. So I went on board with him. The lap prior to Oscar coming behind Sainz, he lost already 5. Then into turn 1, into turn 2, into turn 3, and then exiting 3, there was another one where he just came across and hit Oscar, where Oscar lost a lot of time, and that was just enough time for Lando to make the undercut work, or the overcut, I should say, because he pitted later than Oscar. So yeah, very unfortunate incident for a guy with so much experience like Carlos. You can't imagine. I know he was battling his other Spanish compatriot, Fernando Alonso, for I don't know what position, maybe 15, but who cares? You know, you need to look at the blue flags, particularly on a Mickey Mouse circuit like Budapest. I've been there. In my days, it was the Ferrari. Then you could just hear your engineer say, Michael is coming, and I was like looking to the left and I saw a red dot, and then he was already on the right hand side of me and past me. But you need to look at the blue flags, and you cannot only rely on your engineer. But Carlos afterwards in the media, he just said, yeah, that's racing. I thought that was quite arrogant and ignorant from him to say.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was interesting because Oscar, straight on the radio to complain, he was talking about the fact that you should have foreseen this, you should have thrown me back out into traffic. The end of the race, he'd calmed down somewhat.
Yeah.
Kind of said, listen, it's nothing to do with the team. It's an unfortunate racing incident, but so unlucky for Oscar. I know Lando was saying, hey, listen, I'm quicker, I'm going to catch him. But had Oscar not had that little skirmish, then we might have actually had a real good battle between the two McLaren boys.
Yeah, and we know Oscar is a very cool guy who doesn't really raise his heart rate that much on the radio, but now it was a different story. He really was swearing, and he was really pissed off also about his team. In hindsight, he knew that there was no other option, because if you are leading the pack from the McLaren boys, which he rightfully got that lead into turn 2 at the opening lap, he had a great pass on Lando. Lando made a mistake and he did the undercut and put himself in the lead. He has first call as well for the pit stop strategy. So talking to his team when to pit, they had to cover off Lewis Hamilton. So he did the pit stop, and normally if there's a clean out lap, clean pit stop, you stay in front and of Lando, who was pitting later than him. But due to the fact that he got hit by Carlos, he just lost up by a second, and he didn't have the overpace to pass Lando, and that was it. That was his race done, and then he had a gearbox issue, and he could park it into turn 4.
Yeah, you talk about a passing manoeuvre. I mean, the moment of the race, I would argue the passing move of the season so far. I mean, I know this guy does ridiculous things behind the wheel of a Formula One car, but even by his lofty standards, the move that he pulled, I know you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
On the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen's dive bomb, lay braking into turn 1, was a thing of absolute beauty, Mr. Doornbos.
Absolutely. If you have that much confidence under braking, I know the guy previously drove with the number 3 on his Red Bull was Daniel Ricciardo. He was a master in outbraking everybody. The confidence on the brakes is really a particular issue in Formula One, because you can make a difference. But I've never seen somebody outbrake 2 cars into turn 1, Liam Lawson and the 7-time world champ, like you said, without locking wheels and going over it. Remember 2024, when he also outbraked Lewis, back then still in the Mercedes. They touched and they both saw the sky. And now it was just a perfect maneuver, and all the hard work that Lewis and Ferrari had done to be in front of Max, he just threw it out of the window. It looked like Lewis was sleeping there, but it took nothing away from the great move and big commitment from Max. But definitely the overtake of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, literally, I don't like using this word, but I'm going to use it, Rob. He bullied Lewis in that moment. He
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, from a mental standpoint, it's not just about Max's wonderful driving. It's anticipating that he knows that Lewis is going to back off from turning into him.
That's it, and he knows also, Max, that he only has one chance to do so with tire life, and it changes the course of your race. It changes the fact that you can do a second stint in clean air instead of just sitting behind the Ferrari all the time. So to get that one chance and to take it, that makes a difference between a very good Grand Prix driver and a fantastic Grand Prix driver.
Is that, I think you've already said it, I want to reiterate that, is that the best overtaking manoeuvre of the season so far?
By far the best overtake of the season.
Yeah, you've got to say that. You've got to say that. He's a Dutchman like you, my man. But, jokes aside, I'd agree. It was a magnificent manoeuvre. And then, of course, Max, what was he, 29 laps on the soft tyre? I mean, for him to manage those tyres,
Yeah.
for him to go on and do what he did, I know he wasn't happy. I know he's still grumbling. I actually think he came on the radio 2-3 laps on the soft, said, what's the strategy here? Because these tyres are already bleeped. You know what I'm getting at on that front. So for him to manage those tyres and get a second place, a fantastic drive again from Max.
Yeah, well, we heard many drivers talk about these effing tires and the tire wear, and that's the thing. Pirelli brings what they think is the best solution of tire wear, soft, medium, and hard. The compound, are they aggressive or are they going really conservative? And then on race day, you notice suddenly with the heavy cars and the high temperatures, the tire wear is more. So nobody could last the one stop. That was off the card straight away. Then Red Bull anticipated well with the softer tires near the end, because then there's the most amount of rubber on the track. The car is getting lighter because it burned a lot of fuel. So the tire life will stand longer than when you, for example, start on the soft tire like Ferrari did. Then after 12 laps, they're cooked and you have to come in. So it was a perfectly executed race by Red Bull, also by staying out when the VC near the end of the race came out. Most drivers pitted and they chose for track position.
I don't know if you saw his after race interview. He was actually quite relaxed, was Max. You know, there was a little shrug of the shoulders. The issues are there for all to see. He's expressed his frustration at various things this season, but he seemed quite relaxed. I mean, you know where I'm going with this next question, Robert. We're a week removed from the Belgian Grand Prix. Speculation continues.
Dutch Grand Prix.
Are we going to get that answer?
A week.
Come Zandvoort?
Yeah, a week from the Belgian Grand Prix and obviously building up to the Dutch Grand Prix. And I just have this stat here. Kimi is on 219 points and Max is on 109. So that's a difference of 110 points. Do you remember last year when we had our podcast and we arrived at the Dutch Grand Prix? What was the difference then with leading Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen? I think it was approximately 108 points. So
Yeah, I think it was.
He's again in the similar situation where will he turn it around with the team for the second half of the season? For the first half, they cannot be happy with the performance that Red Bull, that for the car they built and the car they gave him. But on the execution, they did quite well. So they preserved some podiums. But yeah, it's not the situation Max or the team wants to be in. Yeah, they have some more races this year to make up for it.
You know, I mean, I think everyone would agree. Driver of the weekend, Lando Norris, qualified on pole, won the race, his first race win of the 2026 season. But hear me out here, Robert. You and I were talking this morning before jumping onto this podcast, and we were both kind of left scratching our heads. How on earth did Kimi Antonelli find his way onto that podium? Because by his lofty standards this season, he has been a long way shy this weekend of the kind of pace that he had set in previous races. Remarkable that he ends up finishing in third.
Yeah, particularly after his grid penalty after qualifying. So, starting in sort of the mid-pack, it's easy to get hit into turn one or to lose your race there. And I think, I wouldn't call it the luck of a champion, but the consistency of a champion. Because he doesn't need to win any more Grand Prix this season, Chris, to become world champion. If he's just consistently there when he's damage limitation, getting a P3, P4, maybe in other times a P2, he will become champion because he has a 50 point gap.
50.
That's more than that's exactly two Grand Prix results. So Yeah, Kimi is doing well in that aspect. I think he's very mature in his driving. He wanted to go for the one stop. He was really almost complaining like a teenager, screaming on the radio, I want to make it work. But then Bono came on the radio and said, we don't trust the tire life. We're not going to do this. We have to box. So they did make the pit stop in the end, which still worked out well for him. But he really wanted to go for the one stop, which is nuts considering, you know, the experience he has with these tires and going for the full amount of laps on the hard compound.
And did you see the end as well? Absolutely spent. He was on the ground, face red, sweat. I mean, there's a man, a young fella, who put his heart and soul into that. He said afterwards, I mean, it was so hot over there in Hungary, but when you compare him to the other drivers, he looked absolutely done in.
He looked destroyed, and I thought what a nice shot was that when Kimi was on the floor trying to get some oxygen and getting some water, suddenly you saw Lando there. He looked at Kimi, and Lando started to grow. He felt himself even more strong, like I'm not on the floor, I'm okay. Probably inside he was hurting and about to throw up as well. But that's the competition you have with drivers. For example, when I was in F1, I went to a training camp with some other F1 drivers from Red Bull, but also some other teams. And we had to cycle through the mountains in Switzerland. I'm telling you, Chris, halfway up the mountain, my tongue was in between the chain almost. I was looking for oxygen. Then I had Robert Kubica on my side, and he looked at me. He was like, "Are you doing well?" I said, "Yeah, this is easy. How about you?" And I was about to throw up as well. So you never give in to your competitors. And suddenly, when Kimi saw Lando, he stood up as well and started chatting to him, probably almost fainting. But it's tough in a Formula One car, especially if you have to be so concentrated on tire life and tire wear and hitting your apexes. And it's not easy. Hungary is a tough one.
Okay, come on then, Rob. I think you've opened up the door for us to walk through this particular line of questioning. Who was the fittest? You know, we forget the best, and we've talked about who was naturally gifted, who had that kind of intangibles that so difficult to pinpoint. But who was the fittest driver back in the day when you were driving?
Michael Schumacher. He was so next level with his nutrition and his training. He had his own techno gym truck with him when we went testing in Barcelona. I mean, I went to the hotel gym, but Minardi always booked a shitty hotel without a gym. So, you know, there was no workouts for me. But yeah, I would say Michael, definitely the fittest guy out there.
He had his own truck, even way back then.
Back in Barcelona, his own techno gym truck. So after testing, he would walk towards not his motorhome, no, he would walk towards the techno gym truck and started working his torso and his neck muscles. And while he just did 100 laps in a Formula One car. And I was out there on the stretcher and talking to the engineers. And no, he was by far, he understood the game of nutrition and physical. You know, early days in the 90s, the teams were only focusing on performing the car, making the car faster. They forgot about the driver. And there were some driver doctors, at the moment, his name is Dr. Ciccarelli. He started a company called Formula Medicine. Lots of drivers went there, and he performed and he proved to the race teams that if you invest not only in your car, but also in the driver, you can also win a couple of tenths per lap. Because, for example, when I did my test there at Formula Medicine, they noticed that I had a small lactose intolerance, which means if you start your day with a cappuccino and a cup of yogurt, yeah, you're not the fastest guy out there when the lights go green. It's only a fraction of a second, but it makes a difference in the long run for a Grand Prix. So to have your physical, mental, nutrition, everything in order, you don't need to spend $100 million to make the car half a second faster if you can spend a little bit less on making the driver better. And that's something Michael understood from the early days, and Ferrari, and he introduced it to the whole paddock. You have to be fitter than fit. There was one guy, Kimi Raikkonen, who didn't understand that, but he had a lot of talent to rely on. But most of the drivers really took it serious.
So that's incredible. Michael Schumacher had his own personal gym, and then all you boys are just looking in, wishing that you had his bank balance, I guess, Robert.
Yeah, and his mindset. I mean, he was just really pushing everybody and everything to the limit to extract the maximum out of each weekend, and that's what made his legacy, and that's the reason I think he became also, or he brought Ferrari back to the top. You know, they didn't leave a stone unturned, and it also made other teams wonder. Like, we're investing tens of millions of dollars in making a car 2/10, half a second faster. But maybe we're not investing too much in a driver. And then when I was in Formula 3, it started. So back in 2003, I signed up for a driver academy school called Formula Medicine. Lots of Formula 1 drivers went there, Jarno Trulli, Fisichella, back in the days. And I was interested as well to see what they're doing there. So they were focusing on nutrition and on physical preparation for race car drivers outside of the car, outside of the track. And they taught me a lot. The owner of this facility, his name is Dr. Ciccarelli, and he was working in the early days with big names like Senna even, and trying to make the teams understand that you have to also invest in a driver, making him faster and test him where he's maybe performing better, in which case. For example, in my case, they found out when I was racing in Formula 2 and about to jump into an F1 car that I had a small lactose intolerance. Well, my mornings, Chris, started with a cappuccino, Italian style, and a bowl of yogurt, which is not the best start then. So my reaction time was probably maybe a split second, a couple of hundred slower than if I wouldn't be taking those lactoses in the morning. And like this, you get confidence. And Michael was one of the drivers that started in the early days already by extracting the maximum out of his own body.
He certainly did, and he won 7 world championships by doing it as well.
So I think I had more allergies that they didn't find.
Blame the allergy. Don't blame the driving acumen.
It's nothing with the I had the heavy rice
blame
food.
the yogurt.
Blame the yogurt.
So there we go. There's the headline. Robert Doornbos did not drive for Ferrari because of yogurt, lactose intolerance. That's what it was.
But
That's
you
the
get the
real
point,
reason,
right?
Robert.
You get the point. You get the point.
Absolutely, I do.
Like
Hey,
you.
listen, just on the subject of Ferrari, of course, Michael Schumacher, a Ferrari legend. I want to touch on them because I saw a lot of kind of fallout on this particular subject in the wake of that Hungarian Grand Prix. Of course, we saw Lewis Hamilton. He had a really frustrating race. You know, he had a real opportunity, I thought, to get on the podium.
Definitely.
There was the late pit stop taking advantage of the virtual safety car. In fact, let's go there first. In hindsight, it wasn't the right decision. Lewis himself stated that it was his opinion he should have stayed out. I mean, your own take on that, first and foremost.
Well, first and foremost, I think it was a great move and ballsy move by Ferrari to start on the soft compound, which means you're doing something different than the cars around you. Only they had 2 guys on the soft compound, Leclerc and Hamilton, and that's probably because they don't have a number 1 driver in the team yet. They both want to be number 1. Then during the race, Lewis sort of had a dodgy start, so he was behind Max, and he did all he could to pass him, which was not possible. Then they did the undercut, and it put him in front of Max Verstappen. So great strategy, that all worked smooth. Then Max did this dive bomb overtake, and Lewis was back to square 1 and had to start all over again. His podium chances diminished in the end because when the team decided to call him in for the final pit stop during that VC, it was so late that Lewis had no time to debate with the team, which normally he debates with them, and that's also a trust thing. I think if the team says, come in now, you just have to trust them that they have the more knowledge than you about the situation. Anyway, he dive bombed into the pits and he was 0.1 mile too fast, and that got him a 5-second penalty. In the end, it's his own mistake because you have to press the limiter in the right time, you have to brake before the white line. It's no rocket science. But it did cost him a chance for a podium. And then leaving the pit lane, I think it was very close with Kimi Antonelli. It was like also 0.1 of a second who hit the safety car line first. And it was the young Italian who came out on top, but on different set of tires. So it was not the perfect execution for Lewis or for the team.
You said it earlier, Robert. Max Verstappen last season missed out on the World Championship by 2 points. I think you know where I'm going with this line of questioning. A lot of Lewis Hamilton fans up in arms a little bit, in the sense that Max Verstappen, obviously, he finishes second, Kimi third, Lewis is running in fourth, he's got Charles Leclerc behind him in fifth. Now, the lead, I think ultimately it was about 4.3 seconds in the end. Add on the 5-second penalty, which means Charles Leclerc finished fourth, Lewis down on fifth, difference of 2 points. And a lot of people are pointing out, hold on a second, Lewis is Kimi Antonelli's closest challenger in the driver standings. Why on earth would Ferrari not tell Charles, listen, back off, because we want Lewis to get the extra couple of points in all of this? What would you say to that?
It's impossible to do so, Chris. As a team boss, you cannot take your pick now and say you're the number one driver to Charles. Because if you look back in the previous 4 races, Charles was the best scoring driver out of anybody. He scored the most points. So secretly, he's been chipping away. That gave him like a 30-point backdrop to Lewis in the championship. And even more than to Kimi, like more than 60. But still, he still has a shot of the title, as we all know, because the season is still quite long. So to ask him, when Lewis makes a mistake, to ask Charles, hey, can you back off so Lewis keeps his fourth place, then you create a lot of tension with its team. That wouldn't be fair to the Monegas.
Okay, on that then, a lot of people up in arms about a different issue, the fact that Charles Leclerc is notified of the 5-second penalty on the radio before Lewis.
Yeah.
Am I making a mountain out of a molehill, or am I suspecting a little bit of favoritism towards Charles there?
Well, I think the radio messaging, that what we hear, it's scrambled and it comes a little bit later. So I think the race engineer of Lewis told him about the 5-second penalty, because the reaction of Lewis was, they're really handing out penalties like this and that. Yeah, but it's also your mistake, mate. Yesterday or the Saturday in qualifying, he blocked Oscar Piastri in turn 1 like a rookie. So definitely a grid penalty. And then to get the speed limit, the only driver that gets a 5-second penalty for a speed limit infringement on a track that he's been legendary at. He had 9 pole positions. He won it 8 times. I mean, come, you're a 7-time world champion. You cannot make these driver errors anymore, and it will cost you. And now today it cost him, or yesterday it cost him a couple of points.
And that's now back-to-back race weekends in which Lewis's performances are being hindered by the fact that he keeps getting these 5-second penalties.
He keeps getting in the shit. I mean, I have to be honest, in Spa it was not his mistake. It was definitely a racing incident. So the steward really punished him too much for the incident with George Russell into turn 4. But the other weekends he did make a lot of driver errors, and I think he's fair enough to admit it. So for the second half he has to work on that, and then hopefully he's in the championship hunt before the season ends.
Yeah, 50 points is now the gap between Kimi and Lewis. It's then another further 29 points back to George Russell. It's taken us a while to get to George, understandably so. I mean, a weekend to forget ultimately. And you talk about driver error versus machine error. It definitely was, and I think Toto Wolff admitted as much. It was a Mercedes issue that saw George Russell not get off that start line and end up having a bit of a nightmare of a race day.
Yeah, well, initially when I saw the start, I noticed that Isaac Hadjar had to avoid George Russell in a very aggressive way. So he bogged down completely. He grabbed the anti-stall. The anti-stall is basically it's the clutch that is behind your steering wheel. So if you release the clutch too fast at the start and you would stall, the engine will not die. The anti-stall is basically a system that gives you a couple of seconds to re-engage the clutch, keep the engine running, and to go again. But when George came on the radio, what happened there? And the engineer said, well, anti-stall. It sounded quite like sarcastic almost. So I thought it was a driver error initially, that he just let go of the clutch too fast. The revs dropped too much and the engine almost died. But then Mercedes came out that it was an error from their side, the software, which means it's painful for George, because you go from, I think he started 7th or 8th, you go all the way back to 20th position. Yeah, your race is done in a place like Hungary.
You know, as a driver through and through as you are, Robert, how frustrating is it? And listen, mechanical issues, engineering issues, they've been part and parcel of F1 for a very long time. But now we're reading about the AI algorithms, the fact that there's another kind of I guess there seems to be another entity that powers these machines, not just the driver. It must be so infuriating to be a George Russell or Max, who's had his issues in recent weeks, Oscar Piastri at that first race in Australia. It's issues that are not of their own doing.
No, it's called a Formula One Driver World Championship, and you want the best driver to win. It's not called a Formula One Computer World Championship. For example, the question to Max Verstappen in a few weeks, or was it last week? I think in Spa, when they asked him, "Wow, Max, the overtake of the season so far has been you on Lewis Hamilton in Austria. What? Talk us through the moment." And then you expect a fantastic story where he would say, you know, I was lining up Lewis and I saw a gap and I just went for it. No, he said, I pressed the button and suddenly I got more horsepower and I passed him. And the commentator was like, no, let's okay, forget about the question. So it's his honesty, and it's not something we want to listen to. And I think George hasn't had a fair chance this weekend to show what he can do in the car, or at least not in the race.
And then George afterwards, I don't know if you saw his after-race interview in which he said basically, you know what? I've been so negative for so long now. It happened. We move on. And that was an interesting kind of different side to George. That's almost a resignation. Or perhaps Mr. Wolff has had a stern word with him to say, listen, enough of the negativity. You've just got to, you know, get on with the ultimately the hand that you're dealt.
I think a mental coach probably told him this, and we all laughed a little bit when Lando Norris was struggling so much with his mental side and the physical side of driving a Formula One car, and the mental side in the media. It's part of sports. I think some athletes are stronger mentally than others. I think the best approach is what George is doing now. Let it go. What's in the past is in the past. And focus, you know, get a plane ticket to Ibiza, get drunk for a couple of nights, and then jump back into the gym and the focus for the Dutch Grand Prix in the second half of the season. You know, there's nothing you can do about, you know, the bad luck that you had. There's nobody cursing you. Just focus on the good stuff. You're in a Mercedes, you have a chance to win Grand Prix weekends, week in, week out. You just have to maximize the result and be in control of situations you can control.
Just to be clear, Robert, is that you inviting George Russell to your gaff in Ibiza?
Well, I think it would help him. Just relax a little bit, George. So jump on your boat and just drive over here and hang out with the Beckhams and Kanye West and all these guys are there. Oh yeah, Doornbos as well.
And the Doornbos. A Saturday night out with Robert Doornbos is stuff of legend, and David Coulthard can attest to that as well. Okay, so another bad weekend for George Russell and Mercedes. You mentioned it a little earlier. 16 upgrades from Aston Martin in Hungary, and in the end, a 13th and a 14th place finish. Lance Stroll 13th, Fernando Alonso down in 14th.
Yeah, I love the interview with Adrian Newey, who was back on the circuit as well, to see what these updates will do in real life. I mean, we have all the best simulators. Definitely Aston Martin, they have the best facilities in England, and the correlation is you have to have it one-on-one. So to see it in real life on track and to have Fernando Alonso drive this car and push it. He got the new tires on, the soft tires on the Friday, I think, and for a first hot lap, to see a performance gain of almost 2 seconds per lap, which is a big jump for them. The bad news is they still have 2 seconds to find, and those are the most difficult ones. But at least it's a positive sign that they're on the way up. I think some journalists asked Adrian Newey, you know, what is your feeling now, and are you happy with the situation? He said, yeah, to be honest, I'm not doing anything different than when I was in the team winning races. You're just trying to bring upgrades to make the car faster, but the deficit here is quite huge. You know, they were in Spa 4 seconds per lap slower in the race than anybody else, which of course it's easy to make a jump of 2 seconds then, and I'm not downplaying their upgrades, but the next couple of phases will be crucial for the success of Aston Martin in the future.
Yeah, I've got those 16 changes in front of me, Robert. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to try and get through all of these.
Okay.
So, and this just gives you an idea of the enormity of the mess that Adrian Newey needs to fix. But of those 16 changes, You had at this weekend the front wing end plate, the engine cover, the side pot inlet, the front brake duct, front wing, floor fences, nose, floor edge, floor body, rear suspension, the diffuser, the rear wing end plate, cooling loops, the rear brake duct, the rear wing, and the beam wing.
I think they used I think they used a bit of their budget for developing the car. You know, there's a maximum budget for all teams, which has been upped. It was $145 million. It's now a little bit more. But Aston Martin definitely used a lot of money to bring this upgraded package.
That is incredible. 16 upgrades
Crazy.
In the one weekend. And you and I were having this conversation as well about this off-season. Obviously, the factories, the garages, etc., closed.
Yeah.
I think Andrea was talking about the fact that he is the McLaren boss, of course, that he's off to Italy. He said he'll never stop talking and thinking about F1, but of course the work stops over this summer break.
Yeah, there's a 2 weeks closure for all teams. So and then a week prior to the Dutch Grand Prix, they can open everything again and do their final preps before flying the cars or driving their cars with the trucks all the way to Holland.
In terms of those upgrades, what are you hearing? Who's got more to offer, Robert, ultimately?
Okay, what I'm hearing is that Mercedes is a little bit worried that they spent maybe too much of their budget cap in the winter, because they went all in to build a rocket ship, which we've seen in the first couple of races. There was like a 1 second gap to everybody else. But then the reliability issues came, so they had to use some of their remaining budget to sort that. Other teams like McLaren and Ferrari are haven't spent all their money in the winter, but slowly are introducing upgrades and spending their budget cap. Ferrari is bringing an upgraded engine to Zandvoort, which is something we should be worried about, because the engine is already quite strong, and this should be a proper step up. McLaren is bringing new upgrades again on the car. Red Bull is bringing a big package also to Zandvoort. So that's the fun part about F1 as well, that you can time it when and where to place these upgrades during a season.
So what you're telling me is Mercedes, I don't want to say they might have run their race, and Toto Wolff was actually labouring the point. We've got an awful lot to be content with. We're leading the constructors, we're leading the Drivers' Championship. Yes, okay, reliability has been an issue for us in recent weeks, but Mercedes are still very much in the box seat, let's be honest.
Yeah, they're very much, but they would even be better if they wouldn't fear the competitors now. They're fearing a little bit the competitors like Ferrari and McLaren, the rate they develop the car. Because otherwise, if they wouldn't show these signals, then Mercedes would say, okay, this 2026 car is fast, it's flowing, we're going to win this championship. Let's shift focus to 2027 already, which means you have an advantage over your competition towards the next year, and you'll be dominant as well in 27. They cannot shift their focus now to 27 car. They have to focus on really reeling in this championships, we should say, at the end of the year.
So let's be honest, as we reach almost a halfway point, and it's almost a halfway point because a race has been added back to the calendar. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But of all the teams at this halfway mark, or at this summer break mark, the happiest team is still ultimately Mercedes, yes?
Yes, agree, 100%.
Who then is most excited, in your opinion, for the second half of the season?
Ferrari. I'm reading the Gazzetta dello Sport, and the whole of Italy is super excited about the prospect Ferrari shows, about the pace Lewis Hamilton is showing, about the pace also Charles Leclerc is now showing. You know, he had some weak races. They have a strong driver pairing, and they should be getting in some good results in the races. I expect them to do well in Singapore. Zandvoort probably not their best circuit. Baku will be good, and obviously the new one is coming up. We'll talk about that shortly in Malaysia. But yeah, I think Ferrari is a team to look out for in the second half of the season.
Yeah, this is almost like the half-term report in many respects, and my half-term reports at school were never good. I'm a work in progress, and for a lot of teams, they are, Robert. I'm sure you were the same. So if you say, listen, Mercedes happy, the most excited is Ferrari, who, in your opinion, has been ultimately the biggest surprise of this season so far?
I would say Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls being the junior team of Red Bull Racing, normally the gap is quite big, and now the gap isn't so big anymore. They've been outscoring Red Bull in some of the races. They have a rookie with Arvin Lindblad who has 6 consecutive point finishes in his Racing Bull. They have a resurgent Liam Lawson who's delivering as well. So yeah, they're 5th in the championship. They're doing a great job. The small team from Faenza, the little brother of Red Bull Racing, is kicking ass.
And then I think I'm wincing already. Aston Martin fans, you might want to turn the volume down on this. The biggest flop, Aston Martin.
Yeah, we have to say the biggest flop, Aston Martin, even though now there are some signs of there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know, there was a bit of competitiveness in the midfield, even 10th place, Alonso, and he went to Q2 in qualifying, you know, small highlights. But then I saw there was a fantastic camera guy, I don't know if you noticed this, that when Alonso went to Q2, the camera went to the Williams garage, and I think the face of Carlos Sainz was like, what? How can they improve so much? And we're still very, very slow. Williams is also very disappointing if you compare it to what they did last year. They didn't really get on top of the car. But yeah, biggest failure of the season, the team, Aston Martin, of course.
What's been your best moment, Robert, when you reflect on the 11 races thus far? What's the moment for you that stands out?
Lewis Hamilton doing so well in the Ferrari. I think that's my top pick for the first part of the season. You know, it was a dream transfer last year when he got to the team. It was the worst season he had in Formula One. To come back that strong mentally, physically, and you know, to recharge the batteries again and to become sort of the leading Ferrari driver and being consecutive, you know, with consistent with your podium finishes. Yeah, I think Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. What's yours?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, I think ultimately the emergence of Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah.
I'm loath to say he is the next Max Verstappen, but the fact that we've got a 19-year-old kid, the fact is, he's Italian as well, so we're going right into the heartland of kind of motorsport racing, if you will. I just think the emergence of Kimi has Liberty Media Group rubbing their hands with glee, because you've got a 19-year-old superstar in the making who has, 9 podiums in the 11 races thus far, Robert. I mean, he's a superstar.
No,
and he
incredible.
Just re-energizes the whole sport.
Incredible. Nobody would have predicted this. The jump that he made from his rookie career and a rookie season at Mercedes to now being... When he won 5 Grand Prix in a row, it was just crazy. Definitely also the top line story. Yeah,
it's a remarkable one, and I think there's going to be far more chapters to this story for the rest of the year. Now, of course, the other big talking point heading into this Hungarian Grand Prix, the confirmation that the Bahrain Grand Prix is back. To give it its proper title, the Gulf Air Bahrain Grand Prix in Malaysia.
Yeah,
What on earth?
Hosted by Malaysia at the Sepang circuit. Yeah, so the Bahrainis basically are still paying for a Grand Prix. They want to host it. They found a mutual agreement with Stefano Domenicali, the boss of Formula One, and the premier of Malaysia. And Malaysia was very happy. They said that we have a fantastic circuit. We're happy to host. It's the best season to race in Malaysia, because in October, I looked it up, they have 24 days of rain in October on average. So it's a great time to host the Grand Prix, a spectacle always. But yeah, at the end of the day, we have an extra race. Thank you, Formula One, for organizing this, and the Bahraini government for making this work and making this happen. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the cars race in the desert in Bahrain, but there's a Bahraini Grand Prix coming up in Malaysia.
Yeah, just to be clear, that is between Baku and Singapore, so it slots right into that. So it'll be 3 races back to back to back.
Yeah, they were in the region anyhow, so logistically it makes sense to do it. And I have some fantastic memories to this place. I got to race there for Red Bull, but also for Minardi. It's very hot. I remember my Minardi days, my drink system broke in the race, lovely. So if you ever want to lose 3 kilograms in 2 hours, drive a Minardi in Malaysia without a drink system. Lovely, yeah.
There are injections for that these days, Robert. I think your way was safer, to be perfectly honest. I am no doctor, so don't quote me on that, okay? That's purely tongue-in-cheek.
I am a little bit
front.
worried. It's still a long way away, Malaysia, but we have, I don't know if you know the track, it's fast, it's flowing, it's great, but they have also 2 very long straights. So to have these new engine regulations on that type of circuit, it will be special to see the battery
It will
deployment.
be special.
Yeah.
It will be, but I'm excited. I'm rather excited, and this, might argue, is quite sadistic, but the fact that you've said that in the month of October averages 24 days of rain, which means we could just get carnage in Sepang.
Yeah, and if there's rain, there's like tropical rain. So when there's been many times in the past, look it up, guys, on YouTube. There's fantastic races in Malaysia. But if there's too much water, these cars become like boats. So you get aquaplaning. And I always say, if you cannot go flat out in a straight line anymore, you should red flag it. And that has happened many times in Malaysia. So then the circuit just floods. But if it's just a little bit of rain, it's a lot of fun.
I'm excited already. 23 races we're back up to for the 2026 season, and fingers crossed that we do and get all 23 across this season, of course culminating in that final race of the year, the Etihad Airways Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Right, final question for you, Robert, before we wrap up for the summer. Ultimately, I know you're on your travels, you're going to be in Zandvoort, so come on then. If you look at the season thus far, you look at the season to come, give me a semblance of how the next kind of 12 races are going to go. You're expecting Ferrari to come through and be maybe a bigger talking point, but what's going to be the major storyline in the next month?
Yeah, next month I think there will be some storylines. The future of Max Verstappen, which will most likely be announced at the Zandvoort Grand Prix, the Dutch Grand Prix, the final lap. That is how they call the event, because it's the last one out of the 6 they signed up for. It's a big moment for Red Bull to get Max on board, obviously for the future, to get his commitment till 2028, which is the contract he signed. And I think it's only fair to a team that you speak it out to the media and to them and say, guys, I will stick with you guys, so we can focus already on 27. That's a big talking point. The other one will be the comeback of George Russell or not, because otherwise it's just Kimi that is gonna, obviously be the number 1 choice. So then he will get the best options by the team to win this championship. Because then you have to be honest, if you mathematically can still win the championship, it's great, but if the gap is too big, then the team will just have to favor one driver.
Yeah, you're not wrong on any of that. And then, all roads lead to Zandvoort. I ask you this every single week because, well, I always kind of bow to your sources and contacts in F1. Are you still leaning towards Max staying at Red Bull?
To be honest, I think he missed the boat. He has to stay with Red Bull.
You think he now has to stay, as in options are now off the table?
The options are off the table. I don't see Mercedes pushing for Max like they pushed in the past, because obviously they have the next big superstar in their own team. And if George keeps underperforming or it becomes a problem, there will be another second driver that they can hire, and you will not pursue for the 4-time world champion. Marketing-wise, it will be fantastic, but sportive-wise, it will be a disaster to have those 2 guys in one team, I think.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Bow down to Robert Doornbos with his contacts in F1. Listen, finally, little story to tell you about from Hungary that caught my eye. Did you see that the Czech Republic president, Robert, did you see this? Petr Pavel, Czech Republic president, who was an official photographer at the Hungarian Grand Prix.
And he does that at the MotoGP as well in Brno, I read. So talk about a motorsport enthusiast. Fantastic, really nice. Yeah.
How great is that? Let's just hope that Donald J. Trump does not have the same hobby, because that would cause anarchy at various speedways around the globe. Let's just hope that that isn't the case, I say, from this side of the camera. Right, Robert, you are on summer break. You've got the kids. Cannot thank you enough. We're at the halfway point, almost. 11 races down, 12 to go. Cannot wait for for Zandvoort, and you're going to be there with your
Yeah.
glow sticks.
Yeah, I'll be there. It's going to be a fantastic weekend, and I will jump on the flight straight after the race Sunday evening to be with you Monday morning sharp at Mille Gallery in Dubai, and to give all the latest gossip news and our analysis about the Grand Prix.
Right, I'm going to let you get back to David Beckham and his yacht. You make sure you apply the factor 50, Robert. Going to make sure you look after that skin of yours, and we'll catch you back here in a few weeks' time. Enjoy your summer break.
Thanks, buddy. Enjoy the summer.
Top stuff, Robert Doornbos, hobnobbing with Kanye West, David Beckham. Yeah, the lucky bugger that he is. Right, Milli Miglia Cafe right here in Dubai. Do check it out. If you've got any plans to be here over the next few weeks, next few months. And of course, AbuDhabiGP.com for all your ticketing information for the Etihad Airways Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Yes, it is still going ahead. First week of December. Pit Talk Podcast, powered by the good folk at Ethara. We'll see you after the summer sojourn. Enjoy it all, folks. Ta-ra for now.